AI is both useful and valuable, primarily because of the different functions that it can help you achieve with more efficiency, but also I think too with other really strong business benefits. And then finally, as well, I want to share with you a bit about other Mississippians that are doing AI. And throughout this as well, I'll be providing you with different links and applications, but I'll mostly be doing that afterwards just to make sure you get tailored instruction for what you would like. So I want to get this one thing off, off the ground first. So when we are talking about generative AI, what we're talking about specifically is when you're able to sort of literally generate novel or new stuff as a result of a smaller input or a different input. So why that's important is because when we're distinguishing between what we traditionally think of as results, which is like, when you Google something, you end up getting a discrete object, like a thing, right? So that there, it's a result. Now, this is not necessarily the technical terminology for it, but it's just a faster way of understanding it. So each of these different dots, that's a result. It's, again, a discrete single object, right? Whereas with generative, what we're doing is that we're clustering together things here and then saying, okay, well, given this prompt or given this kind of input into a system, we can reasonably assume that the output should be something akin to here. And so that's kind of the math part of what's going on. It's really just clustering together multiple different results and then making sure that there's sort of an average in between them. And that's when you hear about things like hallucinations and things like that. That comes from because we're not looking for a specific object or series of objects. We're looking for approximations cut in between each of these different points. So I'm going to pause there for just 1 second to make sure we're on the same page. But before we get to other questions, the last piece of insight I would like to share with you is that what makes this era of AI so different and special is that now the technology exists to use NLP or natural language, just how you and I communicate, to be able to get out of this an approximation or that response that we're looking for. So again, I'm going to pause this for a second and I'm going to stop screen share. In the chat, how are folks doing with this concept so far? And I'm going to share with you guys ChatGPT in just a moment. Good. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. Doing okay. All right, Stacey. And again, I appreciate the honesty, folks. It's very, very helpful. All right. So I'm going to drop this into the chat, folks. So this is ChatGPT. This is the big thing that everybody's been talking about. And once you click onto this, it will take you to a screen, and I will start sharing screen. It will take you to a screen that looks like this. Now, this doesn't look too complicated right now, but the ability behind it is truly remarkable. So let's say that we wanted to, find a result. So a result, in my view, is something like, I don't know, Mississippi map. So when we look up a Mississippi map, what we're finding here is this is a thing, right? We can find this on the internet. This is an image, for example. This is like an Amazon thing, right? These are results. This is a website. It's a thing, right? Now, what happens if I just type Mississippi map into ChatGPT? Wow, that was not expected. Okay. But it gives you an idea of Mississippi's shape. Okay. So as you can see, this here just generated for me a quote unquote map of Mississippi. I don't think it would take a rocket scientist to say this is not a good map of Mississippi. But again, the reason that this is important, again, is that we're looking at the approximation of what and like the representation of what's being done, not the actual result of it. So I'm going to stop sharing there as well. How are folks doing with this concept so far? DeLorean, yes. Oh, Beth, I see a raised hand. Yes. And Tina also has a raised hand. How do I put people off of mute, DeLorean, or?
I was having troubles myself getting back in. Um, Everyone should be able to. I had to get into my own one, so I don't have the rights, but Michael has the rights. You should be able to give him the rights as well. Where you see
Okay.
like an ellipsis at the top, and you can make him a co-host because he's on the training one.
And David, you can also call on people as well if they raise their hand and they can come off.
Okay,
Yeah, they
sounds
can
good.
unmute themselves.
Good stuff. Thank you. All right, so I'm seeing that folks are mostly good for this concept so far. Again, like I'm not blasting through this right now, but what I do want to encourage folks to do is be curious. Being curious about this is going to yield the best results for what you're looking for, and I think it's just a really wonderful opportunity so far. But again, now that we have this established that AI, it's not like this magic wand, it's math. And it doesn't necessarily deal with the specific results like a Google result. Instead, what it does is it approximates and comes up with a representation of pre-existing results. So a lot of folks have heard about things like data bias and, you know, what good data in and all this training data. So that data, those are the results, the discrete objects that you're able to then put together, clump together to be able to then generate stuff from. So you don't need to think about this concept, I don't think, too much more. But I know that the next question likely is going to be something like, well, now that you've just showed me this, what the heck is this? How does it work? And why, or how can I use it? So let's break this down for a second. What we have just seen with ChatGPT is this part, a web application. So a web application, in this sense, is literally just that that front screen where you can type things in and you can see different things on the side, like the login button and the sign up. That's the web application. This part here, the API, this part here you can think of as like plumbing. So basically, when you have too much stuff going in, it doesn't work well. When you don't have very much stuff in it, it doesn't, I mean, it works faster. And as well, its responsibility is to transmit stuff from the web application to this other part on the right, which is known as a large language model. Now, not all AI is large language models. Far from it. Large language models, however, are really, really good at being able to have results like this that you can then have representations go through to then generate outputs. So what that ends up looking like is that when you put text here, it then is transmitted through, you know, the plumbing of the web over to this processing area. And this processing area, then once it's done going through what you've texted, put into your input, it then puts it back to this web application. So what is happening inside of this LLM or this language model? So the language model overall is trained on data, and what this kind of training data looks like generally is called like or it's yes and no information. So a great example would be CAPTCHA. So CAPTCHA, you know those things, you know, when you go to log into a website and you know you get stressed out because like there's like half a bicycle wheel or something like that in another square. Well, imagine those types of images. And you basically are saying yes or no if something exists. So take these different yeses and nos of things like images of dogs, cats, snippets of Shakespeare, all of these different things. Now, how the computer is reading this is different from how the human is reading this. How the computer is reading an image is it doesn't just look at it. What it does is it identifies patterns, and those patterns are generated from code, and code is text. So the reason why large language models right now are getting so interesting is because they can generate the types of files that computers can understand, like videos and images and music and text. So when we take these yeses and nos of information, and then we multiply this by billions and billions of times, what ends up happening, or trillions actually, what ends up happening is that you end up getting these different blobs of information, right? And so as you'll notice, these are very similar to what we talked about last time. So these are all responses, right? This is a yes or no. It's a discrete object, right? Whereas this then feeds all of the different generative opportunities that you can then instigate by saying, like, find me images of yellow dogs. Well, all the yellow dogs are over here. So this is going to make the approximation easier. So I'm going to pause there for a second because I know we're blasting through this. So just pausing and making sure this is how are folks doing with these concepts so far? We've got plenty of time, so please raise your hand or just go off mute. And is there anything I can do to be more clear? Cool, I appreciate that, Melissa. Thank you. Good stuff. Okay. All right. So now that we've great learning, good stuff. All right. Be curious, people. It's good. All right. So now that we're at this point, the next thing that I want to share with you is because I think we've belabored the point that AI is not math, and I try my best to find that fine line between boring you and informing you. So now that we've hopefully straddled that line quite well, let's move on to the next thesis that I have for at least for today, which is that I think AI is useful for you. And here's some reasons why. Oh, share screen. I'm just going to share the entire screen. There's nothing really. All right. So one of the things that we were kind of just going over again is that all of these different things of like patterns of data exist. So what? Who cares? So when we're thinking about how to use this type of application, what we're really, the opportunities that currently exist are things that, again, we generate. And that's a weird kind of thing to get your head into. So here's a few examples to get started with. So for example, generative information collection. So information collection, like, for example, doing research for a project, understanding competitors, understanding, for example, just different options for your tech stack or how to, assess candidates for a new role. That sort of information collection. The opportunity that AI has is that because it can now go out and collect the information and then tell you what information it's collected with natural language, that's really useful. Another great aspect is research, which I think is quite closely tied to information collection. But what I think is actually two sides of the same coin is insights. So to me, an insight is a truth that you can confirm. And a truth that you can confirm is oftentimes quite difficult to come by, especially in operations. So for example, this could be a method of working that works well for you, a process that works well for you, a way of consuming and then outputting details. That's another potential insight that you might have. And I think that at least generative AI is getting to the point where it can start to offer truths about information sets in very short periods of time. The next few I don't think are as significant for right now because it's better to explain it with visuals. So when you're trying to build a generative AI application, the fastest way to do that is to then is to then do take all of the different information that you have and treat it like text. And when that text goes through each of these different patterns, so chain 1, chain 2, chain 3, chain 4, as you might be able to see on screen, what each of those represent is sort of the response that you would get from a large language model. So an example of a response, as we were talking about it, is this here, right? This object that we've been presented with from ChatGPT. So if we were to go back to this, we put in the user input of Mississippi map. The output of that was this terrible JavaScript thing. Now, when you're making this model, however, this here is not your result. You want to get all the way over here because you can then keep on quote unquote prompting your result the response that you get to change up. So what does that look like? So here we go take the above map and improve it so that the borders are more defined and that the gulf is more obvious. Use colors to define land versus borders. Oops, borders versus ocean / river. Now, this here is a prompt, just like what I explained up here. So what is happening right now is that it's going to analyze all of the different sort of patterns inside of this text. So the patterns inside of this text are going to mirror something akin to, just berserk amounts of information. And then once it finds the different pattern in the text that looks similar, that's when it will then produce a result. So let's see what happens. Okay. This is awful. So I'm not entirely sure how this happened. But again, we're still playing around with tech here. So this result here can then be thought of, as the second output, right? And if we now say, now I'm writing this because remember how I told you folks that that natural language processing was one of the big improvements of it, that we can talk to the computer to be able to get out of it what we want. This is what I'm talking about. Like this is not necessarily a conversation, but it certainly has the elements of a conversation. So when you tell it something like this is horrible, improve it, what is supposed to happen is that it's meant to be able to adjust the expectations to be able to better improve it. So it clearly is not able to actually understand what's going on here. So what we're going to do here is Mississippi map. Whoa, okay. You know what? Let's just give up on this for now. Because it's not going exactly how I planned it, but that's how demos happen sometimes. But again, what you can see ends up happening is that you're able to sculpt the different outputs that you get to your final output. I've just this is probably a better example here. Write me a pro forma for a non-profit in Jackson, Mississippi that helps homeless folks. We have received a grant of $100K from Kellogg to reduce homelessness, chronic homelessness. Help, develop a pro forma from your best understanding of how we should structure this entity to achieve success. Now, here what we're seeing is a much better representation of that output, right? So we've put this prompt in here, user input, and the result we're getting is chain 1, this part here. Now, this is not in the format that I want. So let's do this. Please format in the as a table. So now this second prompt then ends up generating the table that we need to make sure that we get what we want out of it. So that there would be the output to chain 2. And as you can see, each time we're using the ChatGPT model to get where we want to at the end. Now, for this, we can also then say, write me an executive summary for the above pro forma. And as you can see now too, it's helping us to define what's going on inside of this made up budget scenario. So if you were to input your own numbers into this, it would also be able to process this more easily and thoroughly than you would just normally in Excel. So where does that leave us overall? So the applications that I think are the most useful and the most prominent now are ones that are, I'm going to call high fluency and low accuracy. So high fluency, in my view, what that ends up looking like is the requirement to actually be able to communicate and be able to communicate via video, audio, text, or images. So what generative AI is getting good at now, as we are starting to see, is that generation of text, which that text can then be translated into other types of mediums, again, like videos and music and other and images. So this aspect up here in this top left corner also requires low accuracy, which also I think would traditionally just be called creativity. The accuracy component, in my view, doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is good or bad. There's no value judgment there. It just literally means if something is incorrect, what is the consequence of it? And so, for example, if you're writing a children's book and something is like grammatically incorrect, that could be far less damaging to someone than having an airline ticket printed with the wrong name, shall we say. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at here is the accuracy cases. But right now, generative AI is excellent at producing these outputs. But from some of the resources I'll be sharing with you folks very shortly, what you'll start to notice is that these are almost free online now. And that's because the cost of producing this type of information has dropped to almost zero. So when you're looking at applications in the medium and the long term as business leaders of nonprofits and of organizations doing good, over here in this high fluency, high accuracy is likely where folks are going to try to make significant inroads and to try to sell things to you as your vendors. So these are the sorts of applications that I'm starting to see more frequently in the market now. Recommendations, presentations, memos, and emails that are more sensitive and time sensitive, as well as purchasing, as well direct full purchasing. This also, though, I don't think covers the whole totality of what an operation does. And most of the time, as you guys know, a business is not always doing activities that require everything to be communicated perfectly. It just needs to be communicated. So making sure that you have the ability to quickly inform and make good decisions via the supporting information available to you is much more feasible and quick with generative AI applications. But I also suspect too, this is where the most of the action over the next few years in terms of innovation is going to be happening, is down here. in this area, just because it's more difficult to get things that are really accurate, but don't necessarily have a ton of information behind it to support how you train those models. So I'm just going to I have a ton of different use cases, but to close off before sharing with you some of what other folks are doing, and then getting into a discussion of what you guys need. This is another way of looking at it as well. It's, again, accuracy is always on the generative AI scale of assessment. But some folks are also looking at more outcomes versus output as well. I don't totally agree with this view as like a best way of looking at things, because I think it's too focused on like the traditional things that businesses do, like products and selling physical items. But I still think it's useful. So in this case, what this author is asserting is that in most cases, it doesn't really matter if the accuracy level is high. It's actually if the consumer gets what they need. And this is traditionally known as automation, robotics and all this stuff. But where we're really going to is this, again, high accuracy, outcome oriented. So an outcome is not an output. And this kind of gets back to that response versus result argument that I was making earlier. So this output over here, that'd be a response, in my view, a discrete object, like, I don't know, cabbages or a Wikipedia or something like that. Those are things. Whereas over here, the outcome is much more akin to the decisions that we need to make, right? This sort of things where our judgment needs to be integrated, and decision making needs to be integrated as well. So I'm going to pause there for a moment and just see how folks are doing. Stop share. How are we doing for all of these concepts so far? And just a thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat is perfect as well. I appreciate that, Mary Jo. Thank you. Leslie, thank you. I appreciate it. And Beth, good stuff. Tina, all right. Good stuff. Wow. All right. Are you guys feeling like experts? Geez, this is great. So, okay. So, how to build. So I've been very fortunate to be on the front of building a lot of this stuff for the last 8 years or so. I'm glad that that's being communicated. All right. So here's the last slide that I have, just to tell you briefly about what we're up to in Mississippi relating to AI. And then afterwards, what we'll do is I'll show you guys all the cool applications that I'm aware of that will help you solve any of the problems that you guys are coming across. So let's go to this part here. So if you have your phone, or if you're not on your phone, here you can scan this QR code and learn about the Mississippi AI Collaborative. So back in March of this past year, we received, as the state of Mississippi, $250,000 from Data.org and Microsoft to get off a program off the ground to help educate folks in Mississippi about generative AI, and to make sure that it was responsibly implemented, and that the mistakes that we've made with search, which ended up really compromising people's privacy and security, are not repeated. So the AI Collaborative, or if you want to check it out online, MississippiAI.org, is a collection of students from several different schools now, as well as the Coding Academy, BeanPath, and CSTA, which is the Computer Science Teachers Association. And together we've been trying to upskill Mississippians and share all of the different pieces of information that we have, as well as we're running something called the AI Agency, which is meant to help small businesses in Mississippi to get AI aware. We are just approaching the end of our grant period, and we'll actually be rebranding soon. I'm actually the chair of the collaborative. And I'm going to drop this in the chat right now as well, to make sure you have the URL. Here we go. But feel free to check this out and to get involved as well. We're going to be asking for more volunteers and other organizations to apply. And again, our goal is to make sure that AI is generally available to folks in Mississippi, that it's secure, and that it's not swiping your information if you're using it. If you want to go and pay for models that do that, that's fine. But I think that it's a better idea to have this as a public good for now. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with Mississippi so far with AI. And that is where you can hear a lot of different pieces of information. There's also another group called MAIN, which is the Mississippi AI Network, and they're more looking at workforce development programming. We're more looking at kind of everybody and making sure that everybody gets upskilled together. My general view of things is that the tide lifts everybody up together. So we're on a tide right now, so we got to make sure things are looking good. So I'm going to shut up for a second. What are some specific questions folks have? Because I can almost guarantee you that I will be able to show you an AI application that can help solve your problem. Or I can share with you guys more information on how to build your own AI apps. I can also share with you guys information on different case studies that I'm aware of. Whatever you'd like.
Well, for me, I get a lot of questions from nonprofits as far as how do they use AI to communicate with donors and the efficacy behind it. Do you have or can you share any, insight as to how nonprofits can, do the donor engagement with AI?
Absolutely, yeah. So the first thing that I'll share with folks, so this is there are a lot of free AI generators now. So here's a quick one as well on generating blog topics, but it doesn't have to be a blog. You can really use it for anything that you want. There's also another great application as well called Subject Line. What Subject Line does is it evaluates your subject line according to what metric that you're trying to achieve. So, for example, if it's clicks for donors, this would be a very helpful application for that as well. ChatGPT is also a great option, as always, to make sure that you're able to communicate quickly. I use ChatGPT pretty infrequently, to be completely honest, mostly because I use Google's Gemini software. I find that to be a little bit better, but also for the companies that I run, it's easier for me from like a business level to figure out where the data is going in and out. So I wouldn't say that that's my endorsement necessarily. It's more that I was worn down by my team wanting to get generative AI, so I had to figure out something to do. Yeah. Does Gemini cost money? So there's a free version of Gemini. I use the paid version because it allows me to access something called Notebook LM. Notebook LM, and I'll just quickly pull that up, is Google's attempt to be able to help you make your own language model very quickly. You can upload any PDF, text, audio that you want, and then be able to create a text box that only looks things up with information that you've uploaded. So it's really, really useful. For example, like we're using Notebook LM here at Innovate Mississippi. We have a large grant proposal due at the end of the month. There's 200 odd pages of highly detailed information that we need to be in compliance with. So we're using Notebook LM to make sure that we hit a checklist that actually makes sense for us, because frankly, I don't have time to go through that many pages, and I'm not going to make my intern do it. So that's what generative AI is going to do. In my view, it's a great example. Is that, I could have asked my intern to go do that, but now she's able to go and learn more information to be able to become a stronger thinker to be able to do that. So I'd highly recommend Notebook LM for that purpose. And also as well, that one, when you pay for it, the data does not leave anywhere, so it's not going to be used for training purposes. So that is an also added benefit as well. The last resource that I'll quickly show you guys as well is TLDR This. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get emails from folks, clients, whatever, that I have no idea what's going on or what they're trying to say. It could be me, could be them, could be both. Here's a quick free way. Just drop text in. It doesn't steal your information. It just quickly analyzes it and just tells you what's up. So this is, again, just another really quick product that I think is very helpful. Yeah. Any other, like, yeah, things that folks are interested in looking up? I'm just assuming people are frantically doing this behind the scenes, so that's good. You can also ask it with audio as well.
I've been trying to find the demographics of the Mississippi homeschooled students, socioeconomic, race, et cetera, et cetera. And I tried Chat GPT and Google, but I can't get a racial breakdown. Or can that be done?
I'm going to say probably, because I don't know the exact answer to that, but let me show you some tools that would give you the closest approximation that I'm aware of. So the first one is called Perplexity AI. It's been getting more publicity recently, and I'm very, very happy for them as well. They're a really strong group of thinkers, and I really love how they've approached doing it. They've really put in a lot of great work. Perplexity AI's goal is to make the internet searchable with the generative AI, so able to bring things together to make it more understandable. However, there are other competitors to this type of research thinking. So this is Genie.io. Genie.io, what it does is it's an academic research platform that allows you to go across multiple different types of information, and to sort of go through like abstracts and summaries and all that good stuff and put things together. Another way is also to use Notebook LM. The way to use Notebook LM is just downloading the data source that you can find, and it's surprisingly amazing at going through data bits and bytes as well. So that is another resource. And I'm just pulling up this last one here. I have it on my tracking list research. Where was it? Consensus. There we go. This is another academic focused AI application. And then finally, Google has a product. There we go. Google has a product called Data Search. So what Data Search allows you to do is to crawl through open source or like available information from public websites and government websites, and to make it into visuals that make sense for whatever you're doing. So that might be able to help as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll
No
use those.
problem.
I'll look at those tools.
No problem. And I'm going to drop as well in the chat, folks. This here is also a list of hundreds of generative AI applications. Some are paid, some are not. But I want to just share with you very briefly, there's a website called GitHub. GitHub is basically where nerds live. And what GitHub is good at, it's good at making sure that it can control versions of text. And as we know, most code is text. So what you can also use GitHub for is a reliable way of looking at lists for things that are technical, because trusted sources can then be verified to make sure that the versions that you're getting aren't like random and bad. So this list here is a strong list, I think, to start with. If you're looking at, if you're looking at getting started with generative AI applications.
I have another question. Do you know of any generative AI that can analyze data to help people measure or analyze their impact? I've been getting a lot of questions around that, whereas organizations might use Google Forms, but they want a deeper dive into the analysis of the surveys that they're getting back.
All right. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to say sort of as per usual. So the first one, just make sure this opens. Okay, so open. Okay, so the first one that I've been made aware of, I haven't used it or done a deep dive into it. So if you do think it's good or useful, please let me know. It's called Virtuous. It seems to be some sort of integrated CRM that uses generative AI to help folks better understand what's going on. This also, where is it? The performance one. Have you heard of Instrumental? Anybody?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, so that is also, this is another generative AI. It's more of a grant portal, um, and like for finding grants and filling them out. This is another one as well called Submittable, that I think is of higher quality and also as well has stronger tracking links behind it. I have never implemented either of these, just to be clear. But just from my assessment, that's what it's capable of. Trying to think. I've heard good things about Click. So I'll drop that chat. So it's a data platform that allows you to input multiple different types of information to then tell visual stories with it. So if you have a data scientist on your team or a programmer or somebody like that, this might be a really unique opportunity for you to collaborate to be able to more clearly talk about what your donors are experiencing. And then the very last thing I'll share with you that I'm aware of is something called CoLoop. CoLoop is designed for helping you with qualitative data assessments. So let's say that you're working with large groups of folks and you want to be able to take feedback and then make sure that you're assessing the sentiment. This is one that's come highly rated from a couple of people I know.
Thank you.
No worries. I'm happy that all of my information that I've been gathering over the years is not totally useless. So let's see. All right, I'm just going to also drop in the chat as well a couple of really cool generative AI applications that I think are just remarkable. I'm just trying to find where I left. Oh, here we are. Okay, hello. All right, the first one's Unso. That's what I'm looking at. That's good to hear, Beth. Excellent. Oh, and actually, before I forget, Grantable is also another version of Instructable that is very useful. The umso.com link that I've just put in the chat, that there you can generate a single landing page for free in seconds. You just type in a sentence and it generates a full website for you, again, for free. The only catch is that it will be at umso.co, but you can label everything beforehand as well. So if you're okay with having the .umso.co after your name, then this is a great free option for you. It's also a Canadian company from Vancouver. And if you can't tell from my accent, I'm from Canada. So props to them. And then lastly, this is a free generative AI app creator. It's called Pico Apps. This is the most simple one that I have found. There are a ton of them out there, but this is absolutely hands down the most simple one that I've found. So have at it. Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. I know I'm diving deeper into, AI and kind of using like futurism. But I know other people in Mississippi, are now starting to find out about futurism and how to use it to kind of help forecast, where things are for their particular nonprofit or for their business. So this has been very helpful.
Good. Well, and here's another fun generative AI news tool, or like a prediction tool, I suppose. So like I have all of my own proprietary like prediction tools, just from because that's how I make a living. But like this is an example of like what a really basic version of one of my first prediction engines looked like. Exploding Topics is an awesome site. Basically, what it does is it trolls it goes across the internet and finds specific keywords and then puts them together as patterns. And then, when those certain patterns start happening more and more frequently, it's able to then indicate that a trend is starting to emerge. So if that's of interest to you, this is just a quick, I would say, the thing to get inspired by. I wouldn't say it's an entirely, unless you want to pay like $1,000 a month or whatever. It's a good start, I think. Another way to do an app as well, if you're interested in doing sort of more predictive modeling, is called Streamlit.io. Streamlit.io helps you make generative AI applications out of data. It's being used more frequently now by academics and scientists to share with the public the information sets that they accumulate during their experiments. So it's a fairly strong tool for that as well. So feel free to check it out.
All right, I definitely will. Anybody else?
And yeah, if folks have just here's another quick fun one. This one is called Do Not Pay. It's to help you not pay parking tickets and other basic legal things. It's I've never had to use it before, but I've heard good things from a couple of friends. And then the last couple of ones I'll put in are if you need to make a logo cheaply. Actually, by cheaply I mean for free. Looka is a really fast way to do that. And then finally, if you're looking for a way to, assess if your website is compatible for folks that have accessibility concerns, wave.webam.org is a generative AI application to give you a website audit as well. Yeah. But if you guys ever want like a list or anything, just let me know. Or get in touch with the AI Collaborative. We're trying to make sure that the young folks in Mississippi that are coming out of our schools, our post-secondary schools and associate degrees, that they're able to take the generative AI tools that they're using, because we know they're using them, and connecting them up with the businesses and opportunities in Mississippi that aren't using generative AI for a variety of reasons. So see it as a really good opportunity to upskill, again, everybody together.
Oh, what's the best way to kind of follow that and get the latest updates on that information? And also, are there any like grants available for nonprofit organizations to be able to use like the generative AI or to help them, develop further down that path?
Yeah. So let's answer the first question. This here is called Hello Alice. Hello Alice. Yes, I'm gonna copy my list right now. All right, one sec. Sorry, I'm just copying this list of information right now, folks, so I don't lose it. There we go. Okay. What I've just dropped in the chat is Hello Alice. Hello Alice will help you get what do you call it? Grants. It's a grant finding tool, and I believe you can also get $1,000 from just even messaging them. So take a peek. And then the last question that you had was grants for folks that are pursuing generative AI applications. So if in Mississippi in the next few months, we'll be like rolling this out and just following the Mississippi AI.org socials. So Instagram, I think we're on Twitter. And then we're going to be releasing a newsletter soon as well. Keep posted for that. We also have the Southern Spark Conference coming up, which is where you'll be able to meet everybody in Mississippi that's doing AI things. So that's going to be in mid-July as well. We're still accepting speakers as well and sponsors, so please sign up. We really, really are looking forward to the community getting out and sharing what we know. So you can find all of those details on MississippiAI.org. And then the last thing I'm going to show you guys is called Hugging Face. Hugging Face is where all the AI nerds live. So if you ever wanted to see what I'm looking at first, like if I am looking up what is the newest, hottest, most amazing thing in AI, the first place I go is Hugging Face. And specifically, I go to the button that says Spaces. And under Spaces, everyone from Facebook to Chinese companies and Japanese companies and African companies and all this, like you can try every AI from around the world. They're on Hugging Face. So if you're trying to find, again, what's new, hot, and cool, that's where you're going to find everything. And when I do know about grants that are more AI specific, I will let you guys know, Deloria.
All right. Thank you. Well, Michael, I am going to turn it back over to you. Thank you, David, for sharing all of your knowledge with us and how AI works and the mechanics behind it.
Oh, not a problem. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you all so much. This has been amazing.
I'm happy to hear it. Yeah, well, please just let folks know, and I will, Lauren, I'll just try to quickly draft up a list of all the different links I shared, and then send it on over to you. And then
I'm ahead of you. I've been copying them.
Nice, perfect, on it.
Too, if you that's funny.
And if y'all have questions, if anybody has questions afterwards that come up, just send those our way and we can pass them on to David or see if we can find the right answer to that question. But yeah, again, thank you, David. This was wonderful information. I think it's going to be really helpful for the folks that were on the call. So we'll get everybody that list of information afterwards. Other than that, everybody have a good day. Go have a good lunch. Enjoy the little bit of sunshine before the weather starts to turn. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, folks. Bye.
Thanks again. Have a good one.
You too.